Hi there, it's Carol with Carol B Crafts. Today is Throwback Thursday, and I'm going to be sharing with you a stamp set and dies that were released in an earlier catalog but are still available. So this is Sweet Cupcake. It's actually a 3-step stamp set. That means you have 3 stamps that you use to make the image. You do one, then the other, then another on top of each other, and you end up with something like this. Now the paper is from the Daisy Delight collection, and it is the reverse side of this, which was kind of hard to cut up because this is so pretty. Now this card is relatively easy to make, except for the stamping is a little tricky. So I will help you, show you some tricks for that. We have our thick whisper white base, then we have early espresso panel, 3 5/8 by 5 1/8. Then we have the back of our Delightful Daisy DSP, 3 3/4 by 5. And all these dimensions will be on my blog. So let's go ahead and put this much together. Okay, so we have our card base. The next thing we want to do is build up from the bottom up. So we'll need, from the Whisper White, 3 1/4 by 4 1/4, we're going to use the largest oval, scalloped oval from the Layering Oval Framelits dies. We're going to use a powder pink 4 by 3, the second largest oval in the Layering Oval dies. And then lastly, Calypso Coral, 3 3/4 by 2, 3 3/4 by 2 3/4, and that's the third largest oval in the Layering Ovals dies. So let me run these through our Big Shot, and I'll be right back. Okay, so we have these made. Now we're going to go ahead and put these on together. On top of the white is going to go the powder pink, and it was the second largest oval in the Layering Ovals. Then we're going to do our Calypso Coral on top of the powder pink, and it was the third largest oval in the Layering Ovals. And using the waxy strip really helps when you're putting these ovals together, because it's kind of hard to get them just perfect. So now we're going to go ahead and put this on our card, and it's going to be even distances on all 4 sides. And again, the waxy strip from the mini glue dots really helps out a lot, because I can just move this around so easily. Alright, then next we're going to go ahead and do some stamping. We're going to stamp our cupcake liner and our cupcake icing. Now we'll need our since we're using photopolymer stamps, we'll need our piercing mat. And I'm going to use half a sheet of Whisper White cardstock, 8 1/2 by 5 1/2, and you don't need this much, but I'm going to be making more than one, so I'm going to go ahead and have a little extra room in case one doesn't work out the way I want it to, because this is a little bit tricky. Now, you don't have to have your Stamp-a-ma-jig, but if you have it, it's highly recommended if you want to get your images perfect. Now, these stamps, they come labeled 1, 2, and 3. And what I have found, and a lot of other people have found, is that I actually stamp 3, 2, 1 instead of 1, 2, 3. It's just easier for me, and I'm not even sure why, but it is. Okay, so we're going to start. I'll have to take this off because I only have 2 D blocks. And the first thing I'm going to stamp is the most solid stamp of all. And with this one, we don't really need to use the Stamp-a-ma-jig. And we're going to stamp that in Pink Pirouette. The colors that we're using for the, actually, this is the wrong colors. The colors that we're using for the icing are Cupcake, Chocolate Chip, and Early Espresso. So the lighter color goes on first, and that's going to be Cupcake. So we're going to go ahead and stamp our Cupcake. So I'm going to just do 3 across. Okay, I can see that one's a little darker. Now we don't need to use the Stamp-a-ma-jig for this one, but now we're going to use Chocolate Chip next, and we're going to do number two stamp. And depending on either way you go, number 2 is always going to be number 2, whether you go 3, 2, 1 or 1, 2, 3. So we're going to use Chocolate Chip, but before we stamp on our paper, we're going to get the little plastic sheeting from our Stamp-a-ma-jig, place it in the corner here of our Stamp-a-ma-jig, and then we're going to stamp going straight down, and that will help us to line up our where we're going to stamp on our icing. So we'll take our plastic sheeting that has the image of our stamp and lay it over our stamped image, and when we have it perfectly placed to where we want it, we'll put our Stamp-a-ma-jig in place, and then we'll remove the sheet, ink up our stamp again, and we'll go straight down. And then we'll get ready to do the next one. We'll do the same thing. We'll take our sheet, line up where we want our image to be. And there's a little tip up here which was real helpful in lining it up. If you get that little tip where it's supposed to be, your image is going to be pretty much where you want it. In the corner and straight down. And then our last one over here, again, we're going to line it up perfectly. And then lastly, we're going to wipe off our plastic sheeting with a baby wipe. Okay, so I've wiped it and dried it, and then now we're going to stamp. Now we're going to stamp, put our plastic back in the Stamp-a-ma-jig, and we're going to use that last image, and that's the one with the more detail to it. We're saving that for the darkest. which is early espresso. So let me get my early espresso ink out, put my chocolate chip away. So now I'm going to stamp up my, ink up my stamp. I'm going to put my plastic in the corner there, go down, stamp on my plastic, and that's going to show me where this image is going to be. So now I'm going to come over here again, line it up to where I want it perfectly. Go straight down. Okay, and then I'm going to do this one. Okay, now we're ready to do the, I'm going to flip this around and we're going to do the little cups for the cupcake. Now these are also 1, 2, 3, but I'm going to do 3, 2, 1. And 1 is going to be, the first one I'm going to do is the more solid image. And then a second one will be a little bit less of a solid image. And then the last one is going to be the smallest image. I'll set that aside for now. So we're going to do, with the inks we're going to use for this are going to be Powder Pink, Calypso Coral, and Pink Pirouette. So Pink Pirouette is our lightest color, so we'll use that first. And we're going to use the most, okay, so number 3, I had to check. Number 3 is the one that has the little lines in the very bottom right corner, or left corner. So we're going to use Pink Pirouette for that. And we're just going to stamp 3, like we did with the icing. 1, 2, and I think I'm going to use my Stamp-a-ma-jig and stamp it more than one time because it is a light color. I think I'm going to stamp it 3 times. I should have stamped it 3 times the first time, but I didn't. So I'm going to go ahead and do it this time. So this time we're not using the sheet, the clear sheet. We're just basically going over the same image, and I can see that my Stamp-a-ma-jig must have slid, so it's like a double image there. So I'm going to do another one just up above it. It's very important to keep everything still, but it's hard to do that and talk at the same time. So I apologize. Okay, and then I think I might try to go over this one here again. Now this is what you can do if you don't have the Stamp-a-ma-jig. You can just try to line it up the best you can, and that actually did pretty good. So it is possible, but it is just tricky. Okay, so that was Pink Pirouette, and that was the number 3 stamp. Now we're going to go to the number 2 stamp, and we're going to use Powder Pink, one of our new in colors. But before we do Powder Pink, we're going to take our Calypso Coral. We're not going to use that for this stamp, but we're going to use it to make our impression on our plastic. So we have our plastic and our Stamp-a-ma-jig. We'll put it in the corner. We're going to take our number 2 stamp, get some Calypso Coral on it because it's a darker ink. That's why I chose Calypso Coral. Okay, and that kind of slid. I'm trying to hurry, and it's never a good idea to hurry when you're doing this. Okay, so I've got that in place. Inked up my number 2 stamp and go straight down and straight up. Okay, so now all I have to do is the same thing. Just put this over. First I'm going to clean my stamp because we're not actually going to use Calypso Coral for this stamp. We're going to use the powder pink. So let me ink up my powder pink. Got this in place pretty much there. And I think I'm going to stamp a few times with this. Now this is a new pad and it's kind of bubbly, so we're going to have to fix that. If you have an ink pad that has bubbles, that means it's got too much ink. So we're just going to move some of that ink to the side. New pads are usually kind of inky like that, and it's real important on your solid images not to have too much ink. Okay, so let me go ahead and line this up again. I lined it up once, but I just want to make sure it's still lined up. Okay. Get our stamp inked up again. Still a little bubbly, but I'll go like this and hopefully get most of the bubbles out. Yeah, that's better. Okay, so we're going to go down once. I'm going to go down again, twice. I think that's enough. Okay, so we're done with our powder pink. And then the last thing we're going to do is that smallest stamp. It's actually the number 1 stamp. Like I said, I'm doing it in reverse order. We're going to clean off our plastic. We're going to get our Stamp-a-ma-jig, put the plastic in the corner. This time we're going to use Calypso Coral, but then we're also going to use Calypso Coral when we stamp, so that's going to work out great. I'm going to stamp on the plastic. Now this stamp you don't want to push down too hard because you'll get ink where you don't want it. So you want to just kind of set it on your ink pad. And once you get this where you want it, we'll go ahead and put this in place using our image on our plastic. We'll go ahead and ink this up good. And we're going to just go straight down and gently press it down in there. And I'm only going to use one because this is a dark ink and I don't want it to fight with the other colors. Okay, that's all the stamping for the cupcake that we're going to do. Now we're going to take our die for the icing and our die for the cupcake liner, and I'm going to cut one of those out of each. Okay, so I have one of each of those, and I can put those away. We'll bring our card back in, and we can go ahead and put these on our card. Just going to use some snail. Let me get rid of this. We don't need that anymore. I'm just going to use some snail on the back. Okay, so go ahead and put this on with some Stampin' Dimensionals. And I want to place it so there's a bit of a space between. I don't want it like right on top. I want it kind of where you can see some of the Calypso coral beneath. Let's see if that's straight. Yeah, that's straight. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take the sweet die that comes with the cupcake cutouts, framelits, and we need a piece of early espresso, 4 inches by 1 1/4. This is going to be for our sweet. Now, I put this on. I didn't want the ends to be adhered down to the card. I wanted them to stick out because I thought that would actually make it look more dimensional. So what I did is I'm going to cut it out here. So in the middle, I'm only going to put adhesive in the middle where I want it to stick all the way across. Then I'm going to take some of that waxy strip paper, or if you have any kind of waxy paper from stickers or anything, mailing labels, just cover that sticky up and put your sweet on top and run it through your Big Shot. And this is what we get. Let me get my die brush, kind of go over it. Now we'll find that we have adhesive on part of it, but not all of it. So I'm just going to remove the backing. And it helps if you have one of these piercing tools to get that backing off. Now I could use the new adhesive sheets, but for a small thing like this, for me, it's just easier to use my waxy strip. Plus it gives me a chance to recycle the waxy strip from my mini glue dots. Okay, so now we're going to take our sweet and we're going to put it on our card. And mostly, I just want to make sure that it's kind of, the W is kind of at, and the E, where the W and E is kind of at the bottom. Not quite at the bottom completely, but kind of right there. It's a little tricky. It's very sticky too. It's tricky and it's sticky. Okay, right there. There we go. So now we have our sweet. Let's do our ribbon. Now we're just going to take a piece of Calypso coral ribbon and tie a bow like this. I have my 2 loops. Kind of hard to do with small ribbon. Okay, so I have my 2 loops, and I'm just going to cross this one over and then through the loop like that. Just play with it till it's perfect, till you like it. And that's a little bit big, so I'm going to make it smaller. Pull on the ends. And that's about right. So I'm going to put a glue dot. And put it in place just above. Get my snips. Everything likes to hide when you're doing a video. I'm going to make this a little bit shorter and this one a little bit shorter. Okay, so we have our ribbon, and now all we need is to do the inside sentiment. Now for the inside sentiment, you can put anything that you want. I have a piece of 4 1/4 by 3 1/2. Get my stamper mat back out, and I'm going to be using two stamps together, and the stamps together will be "Thanks so much." Let's see, where is it? You're the icing on my cupcake. Thanks so much. Okay, so I'm going to get that stamp wherever I put it. Here it is. I'm getting my chocolate chip ink. Not chocolate chip, early espresso ink. I'm trying to hurry. It's a long video. So early espresso ink, ink it up, and I've got the 2 together on my block. Stamp it right there. You're the icing on my cupcake. Thanks so much. And let that dry a little bit so it doesn't smear when we put it on our adhere it to our card base. Okay, so put some snail on the back. And this chocolate chip is 4 1/2 by 3 3/4. Let's see, 3 3/4 by 4 1/2. Oops, it doesn't work if you don't get your sticky stuck to your waxy strip. Okay, I'll put it right there. Alright, now our card could be finished if you like it just like that. So my video stopped recording, so I had to start again. So I was looking at this card. This is the finished one, and this is the one that we just did. And this one would be fine, just like this. But I wanted to do something a little bit more. So I wanted to put some sprinkles on it. And I was looking, trying to think, how could I get some sprinkles? What can I do to get some sprinkles? And it reminded me that the Frozen Treats Framelits dies has a little sprinkles, round sprinkles die. So I'm going to use that. And I have a scrap piece of powder pink, 2 inches by 1 1/4 inch. And I'm going to do this two ways. The first way I'm going to do is to use the adhesive like we did for the sweet, and I'm going to put it all along the back. And then I'm going to take some of the waxy strip from the mini glue dots, and I'm going to cover it up. And then I'm going to take this die over to my Big Shot and run it through. And that way it'll put sticky on the back of those little tiny little sprinkles that we're going to put on our cupcake. So this is what we have when we're finished. And so now our little sprinkles are inside the die. And I'm going to turn it over and try to get the pieces of the little white waxy paper off the back. I'm going to try to do that. Let me bring this in a little bit. So that you can see what I'm doing. So I'm getting that little bit of waxy paper off the back. Once I get all the waxy paper off, I'm going to take the die and flip it over, and with my piercing tool I'm just going to push through one of the holes, and I'll push through each hole and I'll move the die around so that I can put my sprinkles where I want them. So I'm going to do that again. I'm going to go ahead and run that through the Big Shot again and get some more sprinkles on it. Okay, so I'll put some more on there. Okay, so I did that twice with the pink, and then I wanted to put some Calypso coral so I have a little bit more color. So I took a scrap piece of Calypso coral, 1 3/4 by 1 1/4, and this time I'm going to do the adhesive on the back a little different. If you have the new adhesive sheets that we sell, you could use those as well on the back. You just peel off the part that has the print, lay down your cardstock on the sticky side, get your scissors and cut it out. And then now you remove that part, and now you have your cardstock with sticky on the back. And I'm going to remove this excess sticky here. So now I'm going to run this through the Big Shot with the Calypso coral. And I'm going to go ahead and take the backing off. And now again I'm going to flip it over and just randomly put the pushing through. I'm going to put the Calypso coral colored. So I only did the Calypso coral once, but I did the powder pink twice. Okay, so then our card is finished. Well, I don't know if you noticed, but I also trimmed up the bows a little bit. I cut the tails off and made the bows a little bit smaller. So I hope that you'll give this card a try. It's a really fun card. A little tricky doing the inking, but with practice you won't have any problem at all. If you have any products that you'd like to try, check out my blog, www.carolbcrafts.com, and be sure to get that host code so that you can earn customer rewards. All the products and dimensions are on my blog. So thanks for watching and have a great day. Bye now.